Since it has been so long since the previous chapter, I will give a little run-through of what happened last time. Last time, you and Kai were invited to the Royal Hunt, which is basically just a banquet to celebrate, like, the seasons changing and yada yada, where you are met with the Emperor, the Empress, the newly appointed Crown Prince, and the Empress Dowager. The next day had come fairly quickly. You had brought a new set of clothes for the hunt. Then was brought in a bow and a set of arrows. It looked normal, but the carvings on the bow within looked to be having a golden descent. You wondered if it was gold, pure gold to be exact. But God, you felt weird. The arrows looked to be made of quite long feathered birds. The feathers that came were purple with a white tip. Did it have to mean something? Or was it just the family color that was assigned to them? Are you ready, my lady? Haru spoke when she was done, seeing Yono holding Ryu. Kai should be waiting now. You nodded along with Haru's words. As you walked, you saw Kai. His kimono was a dark purple. It was somehow tight on him. And God, does he get hotter every day. Or was it just you? Are you ready? Kai asked in a stern tone, but almost a hint of concern. He was making sure you were all right with what had happened last night. You looked down, now seeing that you were lightly trembling. I don't know, though, if I want my son to live a happy, normal life, I have to make sure nothing can harm our son. You looked up at him. His face was normal, stern as always. I wish nothing more. He nodded. He opened the door and the four of you walked out. Seeing many high-ranking officials or nobles walking about, the four of you didn't know where to go, so just followed, making your way to the grand event. You felt off, sitting around a table with high-ranking officials. Yono and Haru weren't allowed in the room. That meaning you were holding on to Ryu, meaning everyone had a good look of your son. He was so small and easily damaged. You felt a tug on your kimono and looked down to see Ryu. He was playing with his hands and ended up holding on to you. Yin, you looked towards Kai. He was looking straight at you. Would you like a glass? You looked behind you to see a servant. They had a tray of drinks. Sure. You smiled as it was placed next to you. Your mind had begun to run. This party is hosted by the Emperor, meaning that no one was going to be testing the drinks other than his, and food at that. It would be saying that the Emperor was untrustworthy, meaning treason. It made you not want to drink or eat anything, but that to mean you would be rude if you did. God, you hated this. The drink was placed beside you as you looked at it, and Kai could sense how nervous you were. So he looked around and took the cup and stirred it around and then took a sip. You watched the whole thing take place in a long-needed breath. If anyone were to see this, it would just be a sign of a cute relationship. But to you two, it was more than that. As more and more food came, Kai had tested every single piece. Of course, when no one was looking. And if needed, it was the same answer as always. Kai wanted to taste your food. But it helped nonetheless. And once the dinner party was over, Yona had taken Ryu from your arms. No worries, everything is well tightened to the horse. There's a med kit, a sewing kit, and some paint and paper, and even some food and some antidote just in case. Haru smiled, giggling to herself. You had forgotten how how creepy she can get compared to the other two, but it was reassuring nonetheless. You really don't need to do that all to her. Yona spoke as she looked at her. Oh, there are plenty more, she giggled. Don't worry, it's not that heavy. She smiled towards you. The horse should be fine. You lightly giggled. Thank you. You sighed and then smiled at the two of them. Then, placing a hand on your shoulder, to Yona's, you spoke. I entrust Ryu to the two of you. If anything comes to harm him, you will not dare to think for a second before protecting him. You sternly spoke. To the two of them, of course. I will make sure that no one dares. Yona spoke as Haru nodded. Now, please tell me the horse isn't creepy as shit. You freaked out a bit. Oh, you mean, Kieran? Haru spoke as they looked at each other. Oh, thank God. I was hoping not to have I'm going to butcher these two names. A Sakuragi, or a Bosco. You sighed heavily. Oh, then that explains. Yona giggled to herself. My, you are still the same Yona as always. She smiled. I just hope Ryu will be the same. Haru looked at the boy and moved her finger around to play with him, and you smiled at the three. You ready? Kai spoke as he walked into the room. Yes. You nodded, and then gave Ryu a kiss on the forehead, and the two of you made your way. High-ranking official men already on their so-called horses. It felt so weird, being the only woman here on this trip. Yes, there were others not actually hunting. It must have been weird to see the same sex out here while you had to look pretty and wait for the one person who brought you here to come back, to actually do something other than gossip. And so, walking to the stand near the others, I stood next to Kai, closer than I would probably normally, thanks to where I was standing. There we were, the Emperor. Next to him on either side was Lady Lishu and his mother, the Empress Dowager. I could see Lishu look over her shoulder as she looked at something, and I presumed it was her son, that I considered my own as well. Kosei and Ryu, in my eyes, were related, since they were in fact the same person truly. Though, I wanted to see my own son, to look in the crowd for him. That would only show that I was weak. If I looked for him, then people would know what my main focus was. And that would put him in danger. I sighed as I focused my mind back to the Emperor. The only way to win, truly, by the end of the day is to find and kill the white tiger. The Emperor rose his hand up in the air. And let the hunt begin, he shouted, many quickly jumping onto their monstrous horses and leaving. I finally looked to where Kai was. He had jumped on his horse already, looking down at me. Are you all right? He asked, lightly looking towards the Emperor and Dowager. I nodded, taking a little smile of my own. Getting an idea of where to go. He nodded, slightly signaling for his horse-like creature to move. If I remembered correctly, white tigers are also known as albino, but they might not know that word or don't really use it. I looked to the Kirin, its beautiful, majestic state, as it just watched me, and I jumped on, sitting to where the horse seemed most comfortable, taking the reins in my hands with a light squeeze of it. We were off. Lightning running into the woods, the echo of males' voices could be heard as I went. I wanted to stay far clear away from the nearby area, though without going too far as if something bad were to happen on its own. The huffing of the Kirin noted as it walked far from the path. Animals normally could tell when danger was upon quicker than a human. So I entrusted this Kirin with my life, combing through the hair of the Kirin, its smooth and curly hair seemingly moving throughout my fingers. It was clearly well taken care of, as it blissfully moved. The slightest noise of a bird or a small animal didn't cause the Kirin to back, nor run. I stood tall from petting and pulled out an arrow from the quiver, placing it just on the slight edge of the body, before placing the end of the arrow on the string. The Kirin waited before I pulled back, waiting for a noise to come out from anywhere. Then I let go. The arrow shot quickly, as what I seemed to be a jackalope ran into the clearing. Not something you would see in ancient Asian mythology. Bullseye, I spoke, as I placed the arrow on the side of the Kirin and jumped off, puffing out air as it looked over and before itching its head to the ground to eat. Walking towards the creature, I pulled the arrow out of the animal, and I stayed there, looking over it. I kneeled down and clasped my hands together. You may rest in peace. With a knowing, disgusted face, I picked up and placed it in the sack hooked on the side of the Kirin. I hated to do this, to say the least, but bringing home nothing was seen as rude. History has taught me that. Jumping back onto the Kirin, noting it for it to take off into a walk. It did nothing, but stayed there, looking out into the forest as if it dug its foot into the ground. I didn't know what it truly meant, but hearing as the wind blew from its nostrils, it to only stay there, just hearing the little noises it made, until it caught my eye. White fur. It gleamed in the light as a white tiger walked slowly out of the bush and into my view. Blue eyes with slitted pupils as it watched me. Just my luck. It was like someone just led me to it. It snarled and growled as it grew closer and closer, but the Kirin didn't move 1 inch. It only stayed there. The tiger jumped, causing the Kirin to stand up. I held onto the reins in an attempt to stay on, but the Kirin was faster than I thought. It had to be going around 40 miles per hour, faster than the normal horse. My eyes squeezed shut, trying to keep the dirt and wind out of them. I could hear the sounds of the tiger clawing, growling as it ran after us, the huffs of air it inhaled and spurted out of its mouth. I peeked my eyes open to see where we were going, since I had no clue where we were, and how I regretted it. The forest green landscape was quickly turning into a bluish color, as the trees had changed into clouds, and the Kirin only ran further, closer and closer towards the edge of the forest. But my eyes widened as it jumped, jumping into the air as a tiger's claw inched from its leg. And just like that, the Kirin's body had seemingly phased into my hands, along with the saddle and everything with it, as it turned to the clouds, then to finally a mist. I froze, feeling the wind as my tears welled into my eyes. Was I going to die for what felt like the 1000th time in this world? I closed my eyes yet again, trying to break from the situation, to try and think if I could think of anything to get out of this. But nothing at all. What were you supposed to do when you were miles from the ground, falling to what was probably your death? I felt nothing but the wind, then the hard ground. I lifted my head, my vision blurry as I lifted my body, raising my hand to feel what had been on my head. I could just sense it. Liquid, feeling as it traveled from the top of my hairline, traveling down to my nose. I looked at my hand, seeing the mix of red with green, probably from the grass, on my finger. Was I bleeding? I rested my hand back onto the ground, looking up to see the top of the cliff. It didn't look that far, only about 10 feet. But the aches in my body made it seem far, far higher. A rustle caught my ears as I looked back into the forest. First, it was the rustle of leaves and bushes. Then a growl. My eyes widened. How did the tiger get down here? Was I out for that long? And finally, It came into full view. So did the full body of the tiger. This time, I was without anything. No paper, no ink, no arrows, no bow, nothing at all to my name. I pushed myself up, buckling down from the pain. Hurting. Everything hurt. But two forces were fighting at me right now. Heel. The voice of an elderly woman spoke, only to be followed by the mew of a cat, and I opened my eyes. A white tabby cat, sitting just in front of me, its blue eyes, big and round, staring at me. I bolted my head upwards, looking to the voice. Empress Dowager. I froze at her, and a couple of guards standing behind her, her hands in her kimono sleeves as her narrow eyes watched me. What is happening? Why are you doing this to me? I grasped the thought. Her sleeves coming to cover her lips as she giggled. I questioned myself on this. But why and how does a human claim the heart of my son? Not once, but twice. My eyes widened. She knew as well. But why let the emperor of a demon marry in bed a woman? A human at that. Answer me, she spat, gripping my cheeks as she made me look at her. I don't know. I slammed her hand away as she gritted her teeth. Was this the reason she hated me? Over a small reason? Or was it more to that I didn't know? Her chest rose and fell as she looked to me. You were the one who gave the Empress a child. She pointed her long finger. You were the one who killed Yatamoto, didn't you? She had a wicked and creepy grin cascaded on her face. You were the one who somehow ended everything I have worked for. She spat, and I froze. What did she mean by that? Were you the one who killed the crown prince and princess? I whispered as my eyes shook from either fear or just shock. Why should I tell? You and the Empress are but the same. She spoke as she walked towards one of the guards, picking an item from their hand, a dagger. If I get rid of you, then would things be simple or would chaos break in the empire? She played with the tip of the dagger. I would take you down if you killed me. I spat, but she only seemed to giggle at that. That would win? Let me ask you this. What could possibly win? A plague or a stone? She looked towards me. You could have bashed the head of someone with the stone, but a plague could take out a whole empire in one night. I'm sure we'll be fine. She turned fully towards me, my chest quickening as she stepped closer. No more paper and no more ink to help you. My eyes widened. What? I gasped. You used that power to make the Empress have a child. Did you use your own son? Or was it off the portrait of someone else? Hey, wait! I felt my hands being held behind my back as the dagger drew over my cheek. I would let you die of blood loss, or I could kill you now. She wanted to play with me. I knew it. I'm not that dumb, as they say. She smirked, ushering with her eyes to bring something. Someone. As my eyes widened when I saw Yona, her body bruised and cut as they threw her to the floor. They must have done this after I left. Now tell me. The Empress Dowager stepped back from me and turned her view onto her. But Yona gritted her teeth as she looked up. I'll ask you one more time. What is your lady's power? She stepped closer. But this time, even though weak, Yona had covered her ears. Her eyes shut as she yelled, I'm not speaking a word! She threw her head to one side and then the other, and I watched as 2 guards held onto each hand, and the dowager's clawed hand held onto Yona's throat. I won't say this again. What is her power? I watched in horror as her hands dropped to her sides, as the brightness and color from her eyes either lightened or faded, and her mouth opened as if she was speaking. With paper and anything she can paint with, she can turn paper and ink into a living drawing. With patience and time, she can bring that painting to our world. She rasped at her head nodded until the light and color came back to her eyes, and her hand shot towards her mouth as I saw her eyes shake. Why did I do that? She whispered, looking at me. The dowager gave a wicked smile. See, nothing leaves my ears nor eyes. She looked towards me. Now, she turned. How did a demon fall in love with a human? She tilted her head. I could see my vision turning into a dizzy and blurry maze as my body went numb. Was this what Yona felt? I don't know. And with that, my body had returned to my own, my hands becoming my own as I watched her. Her eyes twitched as she looked towards me. What do you mean? She spat as she held the base of my hair. You must have done something to make him fall, just like that stupid girl. She threw me to the floor, and I looked towards Yona. Where's my baby? It was the only thing I could think. She was the last person I trusted with him. Don't ignore me! The dowager spat as she grabbed my hair yet again. Yona looked weak as she tried to speak, but nothing came out of her mouth. Your little boy will be next, so you won't have to wait too long to see him. She laughed as she barked into my ear, seeing as Yona mouthed the words, Run, please. So I pushed the Empress Dowager's cheek, and finally being able to stand, I ran, running still as my body hurt as I worked my body on overtime, hearing the Dowager's voice echo throughout the forest, along with the roar of the tiger. I could feel the blood dropping to the ground as I ran. I wanted to do something else, but I knew I couldn't. I just had to make sure I did not hear the Empress Dowager's voice. That has to be the reason why my body went on its own. Running and running, I could feel my clothes ripping and tearing as I jumped over tree roots and thorns. My body was beginning to feel numb as I ran. I was working on further overtime this time. I wanted to break down and cry, but I wasn't going to die. Not now, not today, not in 20 years from now. I ran and ran, soon tripping on a root. Luckily, I had fell on my hands, but the pain shooting throughout my body as I coughed up air in my lungs as I tried to suck in more. My throat was dry and sore as I tried to breathe, my body shaking, my body becoming weak as black starts started to coax my vision. Tears making it blurry, liquid being the only thing I could feel. Wait, liquid. I moved to look at my hand. Blood seemingly poured from the cut and punctured my skin. I pushed through my half-blindness to look for something, anything that could help me. There was my answer. A stick with thorns. I didn't care if it was a poisonous plant or not. I needed it. Piercing my own finger to the point where blood had poured down, I drew what I needed most, something that only I could make. A bow and only one arrow. Carefully reaching it, my hands in the ground, I pulled the two out, making sure that the arrow and bow would work. I eyed the only arrow, noting how it was first. It was normal, but glowed a golden glow. Something I had only seen in a show, but I had to use it. I had to risk it. Placing the arrow in and aiming it towards the sky, a blinding light coming from the head of the arrow. Using everything in me, I pulled back, letting it free as a trail of sparkles followed. I watched as it flew higher and higher into the sky, as I heard the voices of men. If I was going to die, then I would take her down with me. My vision was finally starting to blur and fade as I fell to the ground, smelling the dirt and grass, along with the scent of blood as tears fell from my face. Meanwhile, shooting down on yet another fuzu, hearing as it hit the ground, I could hear the forest, distant shouts and calls of animals and men. I didn't mind them at all. I was waiting for one thing, to be finished, to see my wife, as she held on to my son, my heart, my yen. Though something caught my eye, a yellow light that seemingly shot up into the air. I moved my head, trying to see as to what it was. The arrow had turned into a golden bird right before it. It wasn't a fang or something of that sort. It was elegantly flew up into the sky until it bursted, the bright yellow soon turning into a blood red as stars and shimmers that fell throughout the sky. My eyes widened as I thought, was this you? Were you in trouble? I didn't wait any longer. Taking the reins and quickening my foot, I sped off. Something in me just needed to make sure. You had to be in danger, if this was right. And I knew I wouldn't be the only one checking.